Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. I hope you're doing well, and if you're not, I hope you are soon. Okay, today's topic is as timely as ever, and that is the topic of audio and radio dramas. Yes, that's right. I am talking about the very popular media from the 1930s and the 1950s. The 1930s and the 1950s were really known as the golden age of radio drama, and many shows were produced in America by production companies like CBS and NBC, by these big media conglomerates, and they were also produced in the UK by the BBC. I grew up listening to these programs in the 1970s because they were syndicated on local radio stations. And I really fell in love with the art form, with the medium, and throughout my life, throughout the last 47 years, I have constantly returned to audio dramas as a very one of my favorite forms of listening to stories, of engaging with fiction, is through audio dramas. I find that they really do help me exercise my imagination, I think, more than books and more than movies do. These old shows from the 1930s and 1950s really were a treasure trove of genre entertainment, with detective shows, mystery and supernatural shows, westerns and comedies, and of course, science fiction. The only genre that really seems to be totally ignored is traditional fantasy, and I do lament this fact. There are a couple of Conan radio dramas, and there are some pretty good read-along storybook versions of things like The Hobbit. But for the most part, sword and sorcery is absolutely ignored in the realms of audio drama, and I really wish that there were some cool fantasy stories to listen to. But science fiction was hugely popular with a number of shows, and this format worked really well with the short story being such a popular format at the time. With all of the pulp publications, there were so many science fiction short stories being written and published at this time. It was quite easy, or there was an abundance of stories to pull from and to adapt to radio because of all the pulp magazines being published at the time. As television became more popular and ubiquitous, the popularity of radio dramas diminished. But there was a resurgence in the 1970s as old-time radio programs began to appear on local radio stations and new shows were being made. The 1970s through the early 1980s is considered a revival period for audio and radio dramas, both in America and again in the UK. This was known as the revival period, and it actually contains many of my favorite shows. While audio dramas will probably never again reach the popularity of the golden age, they have never gone away completely. And now with podcasts and YouTube, they are again popular, but with much smaller audiences. The BBC has continued to create very high quality audio dramas over the decades. This is where Hitchhiker's Guide from the Galaxy originally appeared. This is actually my favorite version of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, is the original BBC audio dramas. And there's probably quite a few people out there who don't know that the book was actually an adaptation of the audio shows. The BBC has also produced great adaptations of popular characters like James Bond and Sherlock Holmes. And even today, they're creating updated adaptations of the work of H.P. Lovecraft. There is also a completely amazing adaptation of the first Star Wars trilogy, which in my opinion is even better than the movies. They go really more in depth into the characters, the backstories of these characters, and one character, Princess Leia, is completely fleshed out, and we learn a whole bunch about her and her life with her parents. The Star Wars trilogy audio production is fantastic. And then now there are also modern shows on podcasts like Rabbits and Welcome to Night Vale, as well as new serialized audio dramas featuring Marvel characters. A lot of these modern podcast dramas, I think, do suffer a bit in terms of acting, especially when compared to the golden age of radio. But we have to remember that in the golden age of radio, the actors who were performing these audio dramas were like the best actors of the time. They were the big movie stars and the television stars of their time. There is one channel on YouTube that puts together these amazing streams of curated shows, and it is called the Late Late Horror Show. And it is one of my favorite YouTube channels. Some absolutely amazing things on that channel. And I will put a link in the description for this show. But okay, so now I'm going to do my top 5 audio dramas. These are in order ranked from 5 to number 1. And if I can, I think there's going to be links. I should be able to find links for everything, and I will put links to the shows in the description. Okay, so coming in at number 5 is the CBS Mystery Theater, and that ran from 1974 to 1982. So this is from the revival period, and there are almost 1,400 episodes of this show, and most of them are on YouTube. Just an incredible amount of content for the CBS Mystery Theater. They were mostly hosted by E.G. Marshall, who acted a bit like the Crypt Keeper or Rod Serling from Twilight Zone. Most of the series is comprised of mystery and thriller style shows, but there are also examples of science fiction, supernatural, and more traditional horror. And while many of the shows were actually original productions, they also adapted the works of authors like Bierce, Blackwood, Collins, Doyle, and Wells. And speaking of H.G. Wells, my favorite episode of this series is called Watcher of the Living, and it is an adaptation of one of his stories. This is a story of an experiment gone wrong that sends 2 men into the land of the dead. It's incredible, really creepy, and really well made. I highly recommend it, and I will put a link to that show in the description. Number 4, coming in at number 4, is a show called The Vanishing Point, and this is from Canadian Broadcasting. It was produced from 1984 to 1986, so again from the revival period, and it consists of about 70 episodes. The Vanishing Point has incredibly high production values, with many modern recording techniques and some really creepy episodes. And a lot of the creepiness is strengthened by the quality of the audio. Lots of great synth work and weird sound effect work. Really good Foley work in this. The Vanishing Point is a little more adult orientated with some more mature themes and can be quite dark at times. Most of the episodes were science fiction in nature, perhaps more akin to like new wave science fiction, not classic golden age science fiction, but they also featured suspense and horror episodes. The Foley, as I said, the Foley and the music work is top notch, and some of the production is just downright terrifying. I've fallen asleep to episodes and woken up completely creeped out because of what my ears were hearing, trying to distinguish between my dreams and reality. While many of the episodes are on YouTube, it's a bit harder to find the complete series. My favorite episode that I've heard so far is Cage of Light, and it is a fantastic episode that really does illustrate the high quality audio production of the show. It is the first episode on the stream that I'm going to post in the description. I find this episode just incredibly creepy. It's kind of a horror science fiction story wrapped around a kind of mystery procedural courtroom drama. Really, really good. Okay, so coming in at number 3 is the Ray Bradbury 13, and this is from an NPR Productions, and it was from 1983 to 1984, so again, from that revival period. The revival period really was just overflowing with classic high-quality audio dramas, and as the name suggests, the Ray Bradbury 13 consists of 13 stories adapted from Ray Bradbury stories for the radio. Again, super high quality production values, good acting, good writing, good sound design. Bradbury was a king of short fiction, crafting some of the most genuinely terrifying horror and some of the most interesting science fiction ever written. And his stories were perfect for audio drama because most of them were short and kind of to the point. They were concise. His stories were adapted to a variety of different shows, but I think this series exemplifies his work the best on radio. The Ravine, the first episode in the series, is a perfect example. I just listened to this at night with the lights out, and it's as scary and as tense as any modern horror movie. And it's so simple. It's all about a woman walking at home at night by herself, and it's pure psychological terror. Okay, and then coming in at number 2, this is the last of the revival period. So number 2 is a show called Alien Worlds, and that was from 1979 to 1980. And that was produced by a gentleman named Lee Hansen for Watermark Entertainment. And this is 30 episodes, but I believe only 26 aired. I think there are 4 episodes that have never been aired before. But for me, Alien Worlds is the high mark of audio production for audio drama. Incredible sound effects and music. The writing is great and the stories are really interesting. The acting is a bit dodgy, especially in the first 2 episodes, but it comes along nicely as the series progresses. This is as good as any science fiction thing I've ever seen and read. I think Alien Worlds is space opera at its finest. The series consists of a number of multi-part stories, with the longest being a story called the ISA Conspiracy, and it is 3 parts. So that's about a little bit over an hour and a half for this one story. The show revolves around the members of the ISA, or the International Space Authority, and they are stationed on the Arthur C. Clarke Astronomical Observatory, a deep space station, and it details their adventures with strange alien worlds and beings. The entire series is on YouTube. I cannot recommend it enough, and I will post a link in the description below. And finally, at number 1, a thing that I have mentioned on the Dungeon Dive before, and that is, of course, the king of all audio science fiction, and that is X-1, which was produced from 1955 to 1958 and consists of about 120 episodes, and it was produced by NBC. This is probably like the best collection of science fiction on the planet outside of like written work. The show is comprised of original stories as well as adaptations from the most popular authors of the golden age of science fiction, including Bradbury, Heinlein, Sturgeon, Tenn, Bish, DeCamp, Leiber, Dick, Simak, and many more. If you want to experience the best of the golden age of science fiction, there really is no better way. The audio production was top-notch for its time, and even today it stands up. Many of the episodes have survived and have been remastered and sound as good as ever. The acting is mostly great, as is the writing, and most of the episodes are available on YouTube. And while it's almost impossible for me to pick a best episode of X-1, there's one episode I heard as a kid that I have never forgotten, and that episode is called Star Bright. Star Bright is from, it was adapted from a story by Mark Clifton, originally published in Galaxy magazine. It's about a girl with powers to move through different dimensions. Very well made, quite chilling, creepy, and I think it was my introduction to the concept of a Mobius strip. So yeah, highly recommend those. So just as a recap, my top 5 favorite audio drama shows were number 5, CBS Mystery Theater, number 4, The Vanishing Point, number 3, The Ray Bradbury 13, number 2, Alien Worlds, and number 1, X-1. All right, guys, well, I hope you enjoyed this little tangent episode into the realms of audio drama, but I think there is some connection to the world of board games and tabletop RPGs in the sense that these are things that all require us to exercise our imagination and to imagine worlds in our head with board games, we are often presented with art and text, with role-playing games the same, and we have to fill in the rest in our imaginations. And with audio dramas, we are presented only with audio and some sound, some words, and our minds have to do a lot of the work to make those sounds and those words come alive with pictures in our mind's eye. And I think it's really important to continue to exercise our imaginations as we get older, and there is really no better way to do so than the work of audio drama. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.